Hello. Hi, my name is Lisa Saldana, and I'm a senior scientist at the Oregon Social Learning Center. I'm joined today by Gracelyn Cruden, who also is at the Oregon Social Learning Center. We were lucky enough to snatch her up, and she now joined us about a year ago. Today, we're going to be talking about one of my ongoing projects called the Families Actively Improving Relationships Program, or the FAIR program. First, I'd like to thank my teams. We have both our research teams and our clinical teams. Of course, this could not be done without either one of them. And I'd like to thank our funders. And so this work began as part of a career development award. I've been fortunate enough to be funded by ACMYF in this journey and NIDA. And then currently right now, we are focused on a G phase of part of the HEAL initiative. And what we're going to share with you today are our outcomes, our procedures and outcomes from the G phase. We also just recently were recognized in the CEBC, which we're excited about. And ideally, with these outcomes, we will be moving into the H phase next year. So just to start off with, and very briefly, FAIR is predicated on a logic model that was developed with the input from stakeholders across many different child welfare systems around the United States. And looking at this very briefly, you can see that there are multiple components that contribute to both child neglect and substance use in the ongoing cycle. The intergenerational transmission of child maltreatment and substance use also fits within the cycle. And our goal is to disrupt it based on intervening at the spot where we have that dotted line there. And we do that with the FAIR model. So FAIR itself, just to cover very briefly, is an integrated treatment using evidence-based strategies. And so really what we're focused on is we're focused on all equal parts of this for our family. And so with the substance use component, we use contingency management evidence-based strategies, including things like frequent urinalysis, functional assessments, fit assessments, sequence of events, day planning, et cetera, et cetera. So all of this comes from the evidence-based substance use behavioral health literature. We also then use evidence-based strategies for addressing parenting. And so our work is in the community, in homes where parents live, which allows us the opportunity to do in vivo coaching. If a child is not in the home, we are then able to still do this work when we go and we assist parents when they are on their visitations with children. We use core PMTO strategies, which were developed at OSLC, but we've modified those with an emphasis on neglect and trauma-focused needs. So things such as focusing on nurturing and attachment, safety planning, education, hygiene, et cetera, et cetera. And then, of course, we have mental health needs. So originally from our feasibility trials, we were focused primarily on the parenting and substance use, but very quickly there understood that there were these other needs of our population. So to address the multitude of mental health needs that are presented, and we use CBT strategies primarily. We do continue to use behavioral strategies to help folks engage with the CBT components. We also work with partner providers to provide medication management when necessary and really focusing on the here and now. The majority of clients, when we first meet them, reveal to us very traumatic backgrounds and pasts, not surprisingly. And many of them, in fact, the vast majority of them are diagnosed at intake with post-traumatic stress disorder. We also then, of course, are addressing ancillary needs. So things like their basic need for documentation. Many of our clients don't have things like social security cards or birth certificates, which are necessary for them to then be able to engage in other ancillary needs, such as seeking employment and housing, getting a GED, et cetera. All of these are provided within an ecologically focused intervention where we're really focused on engagement throughout the entire process. It's a really beautiful thing to watch our clients grow over time, but the things that are engaging to them when we very first meet them might not be engaging to them several weeks or months later as they develop and they grow themselves throughout their treatment. So we're always focused on engagement and emphasizing relationships, not just the therapeutic relationship, but relationships with community partners, with family members, and of course, between the parent and child. We use different engagement strategies, similar to some of the other intensive evidence-based practices, but we do meet in the community and home settings. We are very flexible in our scheduling. We also provide just some basic needs. And so sometimes we can work with clients and have our sessions while we are not in the time of COVID, of course, but when we're driving to the grocery store, driving them to an appointment, other things where we're going to be going and providing advocacy work or in vivo coaching within that community setting. And then we use Fairbucks. So Fairbucks is part of our contingency management system. And with Fairbucks, which is basically monopoly money, you get trips to the fair store. So you're able to earn Fairbucks through a range of treatment successes, taking a negative UA, although at the beginning of treatment, we might provide Fairbucks and reinforcement simply for agreeing to take the UA, completing a difficult parenting skills component, or making some progress towards ancillary goals, etc. And so when you do earn those Fairbucks, you then get the opportunity to go to the fair store. The fair store can be something as small as a large closet, but what we've grown to is we've grown to an actual room where we are able to not only have clients spend their Fairbucks, but also it provides teaching opportunities for us to talk about ways to shop appropriately, making choices for the household, and we also have the opportunity for them to apply for emergency funds if necessary. We have partnership with child welfare and criminal justice systems, which is critical. We definitely view this as a team approach. And so all of these folks that are important providers within the client's life and treatment are incredibly important to our treatment as well. One of the most important things, though, is to really know how to leverage each other's strengths while also respecting that we each have different responsibilities and roles. And so our needs are different from what we're expecting from clients and what our follow through has to be. So we like to coordinate and collaborate. Our eligibility criteria is really parents of any age with child of any age that's under the age of 18. We even work with pregnant moms, and primarily we're primarily working with folks that are in Lane County and on OHP, which is our Medicaid here. Our initial engagement rates from the clinical trials, that is, are quite high at 95%, and our retention rates in treatment are around 72%, so much higher than what we see in typical outpatient settings for our population. So who we serve primarily are individuals that are referred for methamphetamine and or opiates. So in our trial, in our most recent effectiveness trial, the majority of our referrals, as you can see here, were for methamphetamine. But once we actually went to assessment and tested them, you see that we have a large group of individuals, although they were referred for methamphetamine, actually also were duly using opiates. So the project that we're talking about today really is focused on the reduction or elimination of methamphetamine and opioid use and the reduction of escalation to that turning into a disorder. You can also see from the slide that the individuals that have that are referred to our program have a range of challenges, both historical challenges as well as current challenges in their life. Our outcomes at treatment itself is approximately 9 months. Our outcomes 2 years post-baseline are using intent to treat analyses, are that those that are randomized or that receive FAIR. We see reductions in substance use, in IV use, in cravings and other drug problems, but then we also see reductions in parenting stress, maladaptive parenting, and those mental health issues. We see improvements in days employed. We currently are offering FAIR at at an outpatient clinic, and this came because there was demand for it in our community. There was a request from our local DHS providers for us to continue to provide, so we opened a clinic, which then provides us the opportunity to be responsive to a new prevention initiative, the HEAL initiative, but on the prevention side from NIDA is focused on individuals between the ages of 16 and 30. Oops, wrong direction. And from this, our eligibility criteria that we were able to draw from are parents age 16 to 30 who are involved with DHS, either child welfare or self-sufficiency programs that are identified as at risk for opioid or methamphetamine misuse or addiction. And you can see on this map up here, this map, the spots that are red show areas, this is from 2016, so it's a little dated, but it's the most recent that we have for a map like this, that basically is showing where the rates of overdose deaths and child entries into foster care are above the national mean. We here in Oregon, up here in the top, you can see where there are many spaces where we are way above the national mean. So for us, we decided that we wanted to conduct this work in our own backyard here in Oregon. Our goal then is to focus on, from our clinical trials, what we see from our normal treatment is that we see reductions to in the first 4 months. So what we're looking to do is replicate the experience of our clients in this period of time where they are still, where clients still are at risk for developing or relapsing back to substance use disorder, and using the techniques that we use within our treatment program at that point in time, including level of engagement, to engage individuals for a preventing outcomes, negative outcomes. The question though is, can we do this and be engaged? So for this project, there are two specific aims that we're focused on in the G phase. One is to develop strategies to identify, reach, and engage these parents, and then the other is to adapt FARE, as I've just described it to you, for prevention. In aim 1, primarily these activities really involve developing relationships with DHS. And so for the last 8 months, we've developed very strong partnerships, and the 3 individuals who are, or 4 individuals actually, who are noted here on the slide, have really become key partners and collaborators in this project. We would not be able to do it without them. But in addition to our very frequent meetings with these individuals, we've conducted a series of 4 stakeholder meetings with DHS senior leadership, where we're talking more about things at a broader system level, engaging them, and eventually reaching the point where we've just achieved a couple of weeks ago, where we have the topmost DHS senior leadership's agreement for us to go ahead and move forward with implementing here in Oregon. One of the ways that we got there was by working with DHS's Office of Reporting and Analytics to be able to look at the existing data at the county level, and looking from both child welfare and self-sufficiency programs, what on a snapshot day our recruitment possibilities might look like. This allows us also to understand our potential to look at reach. What type of opportunities do we have to make a population level impact at each of these, in each of the counties that are identified? So from doing that, where we ended up is we were able, of 36 counties, we ordered them both for child welfare as well as self-sufficiency sides of the DHS continuum. So child welfare, those of you I'm sure are very familiar with that. Self-sufficiency are things like our TANF workers, getting housing vouchers, etc. We compared that then against the SAMHSA map of providers for us to be able to see where were there greater needs in the county. And again, that produced some rank ordering for us to be able to look at county population effects. Ultimately, what we ended up then, what you see here on this map, are each of these counties are the ones that were identified as being potential for us to recruit from. The different shading indicates the level of severity in terms of lack of services. And so what we landed on then are the ones that were the dark orange, are the ones that fit all of our criteria and also did not have competing priorities from the perspective of child welfare right now. So those that are starred are the counties that we are working on and the ones that were identified. Here where this arrow is, this is identifying the fact that at DHS's request, we are extending beyond just counties, and we are looking at this entire district. This is a very rural district, but one in which there's a lot of high need. So although only one county, the larger county in that district, was identified through our analysis of merging of the data, we'll be looking across all of those counties. So now I'm going to kick it over to Gracelyn, and she's going to talk to you a little bit about, since we've identified these counties, then what is the prevention adaptation looking like that we are presenting to these counties?
Thanks, Lisa. So as part of our efforts to adapt FARE for a prevention-oriented approach, I had the pleasure of interviewing graduated FARE clients and current or previous clinicians, supervisors, and administrators with FARE. And the interviews probed about multiple aspects of clients' and clinicians' experience with FARE, but it quickly became evident that the basic components of FARE, those 4 components Lisa mentioned earlier on, needed to be maintained. However, it also became apparent how important engagement was for FAIR, and what that may look like would vary depending on where a client was in their sobriety journey. So this had obvious implications for the prevention adaptations. And further, we're interested in exploring the mediational role of engagement during the H phase that Lisa alluded to. So the interviews really emphasize understanding engagement. They were semi-structured interviews that lasted about 1 hour, and participants were compensated $50 for their time. A few themes came through. One of the most relevant and resounding ones was how much clients appreciated the strength-based approach that is really integral to the FAIR model, and that consistent engagement. So consistent engagement from the client's perspective at the beginning, as you can see from this first client quote, may be like, oh my gosh, you are too close. But that bond and the rapport that gets built through that consistent strength-based engagement really helps clients want to engage in treatment, feel seen, and continue engaging, not only through treatment, but even beyond treatment. And one of the additional themes that we saw then was how important FAIR is for to receive community or in-home services. Next slide, Lisa. Thanks. So one of the integral components of FAIR is to go where clients are and quite literally meet them where they are. So this could be in their home, at their place of work. And one of this in-home and community-based engagement not only makes engagement more feasible from the client's perspective, so they're not having to find transportation to a clinician's office, for example, but it also offers unique opportunities for therapeutic interactions. So you can see from some of the clinician quotes here is that they can get eyes on the situation, as the one clinician said. So it helps them provide that unique opportunity for engagement again. And then on the next slide, we'll see that there are really important implications for engagement in terms of prevention. So engagement is one way to really help clients find ways to reach out to the clinicians or to identify other people and places that could support them if they're starting to feel stressed or like engaging with substances. And so engagement really helps identify how clients can identify prevention strategies that they can apply in their daily life. And then we took these qualitative interviews, transcribed them professionally, and then 3 coders, including myself, coded them thematically in deduced virtual software. And then I took those themes and started placing them in causal loop diagrams. And these are a way for presenting qualitative dynamic hypotheses based in system science that really help us understand how things fit together dynamically over time. And what was really apparent was that engagement was not just one thing or one action, but really a bunch of different things. And those different actions and strategies interacted together dynamically over time. So for example, if you look to the right of your screen where it says strengths-based engagement, that strength-based engagement approach really helps build clients' sense of empowerment. And that in turn increases the positive choices that they're making, which then again in turn increases their time spent achieving and maintaining sobriety. And then as they achieve and maintain sobriety, again, it increases their sense of empowerment. So this becomes a virtuous loop or a self-reinforcing loop of positive behaviors that we're excited to see. And so we've identified that it'll be really important as that we're training new clinicians in the prevention FAIR model that we're going to be emphasizing these different engagement strategies and how important they are.
Great, thank you. So what are we going to do with all of this? So we have spent some time this year. We have created a bunch of implementation materials using the stages of implementation completion, which has been developed at our shop to develop those pre-implementation as well as implementation materials such as coaching materials and remote observation materials. We are then going to establish 2 new clinics here in the state where we are, with NIDA funding, able to help support the startup costs and also provide that free coaching, training, and quality assurance, fidelity monitoring to these programs. And so that's where we're at. So our hope is that we're going to take what we've learned, We are going to start these new programs, and we are going to create programs ideally that are sustainable here in the community. We ourselves have already started the second part of this work, where we have been working. I've been working the last couple of weeks talking with different individuals from these different counties that have been identified, and we're starting to work with identifying providers who might be available if we are fortunate enough to receive funding for the H phase. So we're really excited about this work. Thank you so much for listening, and look forward to receiving any questions that anybody might have for us. Thank you.